The next place we can bypass same origin policies is through a technique called cross-site flashing. I really hate the name because it's basically just cross-site scripting using a Flash object instead of a web page to render the link. The concept's pretty simple. Since Flash objects can take parameters just like web pages, and many Flash objects will take a URL for a link as a parameter, all you have to do is load the Flash object with the link using the JavaScript protocol handler as the input parameter. Somebody clicks on that link, you can force the user to execute any arbitrary JavaScript you want. Now, it's interesting to note that the automatic execution of JavaScript payloads is actually kind of tricky with Flash, but if you can get the user to click on a link in a Flash object, it's pretty much game over. While millions of Swift files out there are vulnerable to this, taking URLs for links directly in a Swift object is actually relatively rare. My preferred approach actually involves poisoning configuration files. It's pretty common for Flash files to take a path to a config file as a parameter. That configuration file usually has things like layout information, raw data, and links to other resources in it, and the Flash object will actually load up that configuration file and use it to render the data. It's rare for the Flash file to validate the path of that configuration file, again, going back to the Flash developers don't really understand security. But all you have to do is grab a copy of the configuration file hosted on your own server, and then modify it to your heart's content. You can change HTML blocks to add malicious links, you can change links to execute JavaScript, and you can change the layout of the entire object to make the user more likely to click on it when they see it embedded in your own server. So here's an example of me using this exact configuration poisoning attack. I iframed a Flash object that's hosted on static.twitter.com into my own webpage at skeptical.org. The object's loaded with parameters telling it to grab the configuration file from my own server, but the configuration file on my server has a really radically different layout. In this case, I made it look like simple text that says, "Click here to see dancing monkeys," but I really could have made it look like anything. When a user clicks on that link, it executes JavaScript in the context of static.twitter.com. So in this case, it forces the user to post tweets from his own Twitter account, and I really could have just as easily stolen information from the account and sent it to my own server, or I could have modified the configuration of that user's account, or I could have loaded up the Beef framework. I mean, at this point, it's just like any other successful cross-site scripting attack. Now, these configuration poisoning attacks are extremely common. I've seen the same kind of issue come up on Flash objects that are hosted on Apple's site, Microsoft, Twitter, Facebook, Yahoo, PayPal. Honestly, pretty much every major website out there probably has some kind of a Flash object on it, and quite a few of those Flash objects tend to be vulnerable to this kind of attack.